33. You already know what you need to do. You know I love a good fairy tale. Ursula, bare-chested Scottish lords, the yellow towel that made me feel like Rapunzel, the wholehearted love of my father who called me princess. Cody called me princess, issuing an ultimatum when I said I wanted to move to Utah. It could have been another gut punch. Is this really who I am? Someone who makes unfair demands and throws emotional temper tantrums? But by then, I knew exactly how hard I had tried. Even better, I knew exactly who I was. My whole life I had been the fun one, the one who provided the levity to keep our pre-Robin triumvirate together. After I left our religion, I began to believe that we have one life. And in that one life, I want to be kind, to send out every bit of good energy I've got while I'm here. But I also want to live a life that's good for me. In wanting to move to Utah, I was thinking about my future castle. To be fair, I may have been thinking more about the moat. I had evicted Cody from my bedroom and stopped needing him as a partner for activities with our kids. I had left my religion, and I had begun my fitness journey. I knew I didn't want to live in the same house as my family. I didn't even want to be in the same town with anyone but Janelle and any of the kids. I desperately wanted to move to Utah, to be near my adult kids and my mom. I needed a nudge, a reminder of the woman I had worked so hard to become. I called my mom. I gotta leave Cody, I told her. I'm not sure what I expected, but I wanted to start with the truth. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to leave. Her response was immediate, almost as if she'd been waiting for me to call her, or like she's my mom and loves me and will always know what I need. Okay, she said, you're going to put both of your feet firmly on the ground, and you're going to take a deep breath, and then you're going to start moving forward. You already know what you need to do. Oh. It's impossible to describe how it felt to have her so immediately there for me. I could weep with her, but there was comfort in it now. What do you need to do? She asked. Well, I need to move to Utah, I said. I needed to be close to my kids. I felt that in my bones. McKelty lived 6 hours from Aspen, so somewhere in between. My dad and siblings all lived in Utah. What is it going to take to move to Utah? My mom asked, and she helped me with the basics. Then she said, you need to start making decisions based on joy, not fear. Start making decisions for you. I remembered believing she was selfish when she put herself first to leave my dad. I was so worried what my kids would think, but we had come so far since Mom and I had started those honest conversations after Cody and I got married. I felt like I could tell her anything, so I did. I feel like I'm being selfish, I said. It's your life, my mom said. Yours. It's not selfish to want a good life. You have to look out for yourself. It's self. It's love. It's not selfish. She was incredible. And it was crazy for me to hear it from her because she loves Cody. When she sees him, she gives him a big hug, and I doubt that will ever change. She hugs Robin. She hugs all the kids. She's the most loving person. But she's clear that loving Cody doesn't mean he's the best one for her daughter. In fact, I thought she had been happy when I married him. She hadn't. I knew things had felt awkward every time we came to town, but at first, that was because I was still working on my relationship with Mom. And then, maybe it was because I dragged a circus along with me, but that wasn't it. She struggled with him as my husband. She saw that I always put him first, not my kids, and not me. And she saw that he liked it that way. You never had a good marriage, she told me. She was ready for me to put myself first. They're manipulating you, she told me as I talked about my fears of leaving the family. Nah, I said. Of course they're not. They're fine. We talked about some of the things that had been going on with the property, the kids, and my finances, and she said, "That's manipulation." Oh, wow. She helped me see clearly why my gut desperately wanted me out of there. And then I talked with Janelle. Janelle and I had grown close, especially when she moved into her RV on the Coyote Pass property. With Janelle was born one of my favorite rituals, the one that had been banned by my faith. Mormons, both mainstream and fundamentalists, don't drink coffee because it's banned in the Words of Wisdom, which advises against anything that can lead to addiction. You could lose your activities recommend for drinking coffee, so it was a big deal. Janelle, a rebel, had the first coffee maker of the sister wives. In Flagstaff, when she lived in the RV, she would come over and have a cup of coffee. That changed our relationship entirely. So, over a cup of coffee, I told Janelle I wanted to leave Cody. It wasn't the first time we had talked about it, and in her mind, it may have been a hypothetical. You can't leave Cody until you create your own source of income, she said immediately. She was pragmatic, but that was not the response I expected. You need to be able to support yourself financially because otherwise, what will you do? It wasn't that she was thinking along the same lines herself. She was full in on Coyote Pass and felt her relationship with Cody was fine, though she wasn't happy about the COVID situation with her kids. But she fully supported me, even when I had started trying to sort through it in Vegas. She did have questions. "I've only raised my kids with you," I remember her saying. "What does this mean for us?" Janelle and I hadn't always been on the same page when we were younger, but we had developed something true. I trust her, and trust her absolutely with my kids. Janelle will always be my sister wife, and I believe our children will always think of both of us as mom. I hope so. Janelle helped me think through everything that would need to happen for me to leave Cody and move to Utah. I still needed to have a conversation with the big guy, not the one with ringlets. I didn't believe in a testimony like I had with Robin, but I was a religious person who loved Jesus, even if I no longer believed Joseph Smith was a prophet or in the Book of Mormon. Deciding to leave Cody felt spiritual to me because I felt I needed to have a strong connection with God to do it. I didn't want God to be upset with me or to be sad, so I talked with him. "Dear God, it's me, Christine. You good with this?" "Yo, Christine, you're a parent just like I am, and I want to see you happy, just like you want to see your kids happy." It was that simple. If God is a loving, nurturing entity, then why would he bind me to Cody and friends for all eternity? That was my second strongest testimony. My strongest was still that Robin should be part of the family. When you think about it, they're related. Maybe God was sending the same message both times. Robin should be with Cody. You should not be with Cody. You should both be with your soulmates, or at least with people who love you as much as you love them. I sat down with my journal, trying not to panic about all I would need to do to leave Cody. My goal was to move to Utah in September, so I backtracked on what needed to happen before then. That gave me about 9 months. I needed to get out of Flagstaff. All my bad memories live in Flagstaff. Oh my gosh, I have great friends in Flagstaff. They're lovely. But I needed to move to Utah, and I needed to create a plan to make that happen. I had to get my finances in order and create a strict budget so I could save enough money for us to move because it's so friggin' expensive. I needed to downsize so everything would fit in one moving truck. I needed to find a place to live and sell my house or rent it. I had to figure out if Gwendolyn would come with me to Utah for school, how it would work for Isabel, who would be graduating, what to do with my plot of Coyote Pass, and what kind of visitation Cody would want with Truly, and how to tell the family. And then I would need to plan Isabel's graduation party. I tackled my finances first. With money, everything had been done as a family. We each had a separate bank account, but if someone came up short or had an emergency, we would pull resources. We had a committee that would essentially vote to make a decision. In the early days, Janelle was one of our breadwinners, and her car broke down. The rest of us handed over cash to take care of it. Sometimes the decisions were harder, like when Mary wanted to buy a bed and breakfast, a lovely idea because the house had belonged to her great-grandparents, but it was a lot of money that we didn't have. Because our finances were so tied up with Cody's, that further complicated matters. We always tossed around ideas for businesses that could make money, from gyms to jewelry to real estate. I would need to disentangle myself, but we'd all become much more independent after we left Lehigh. I think many women fear leaving their spouses because of the money issue, but so many women have talked to me and said things got better in every way, including financially, after they left. I think that comes from knowing what you can depend on and planning your own budget, which I'd already tasted. I couldn't rely on Cody for groceries with our committee dynamic, but I could depend on myself. Polygamous marriages are tough because there is no legal documentation. The house was in my name and Cody's. The plot on Coyote Pass was in my name, and Cody's and Robin's. I couldn't ask for half of anything, but Robin could because she legally married Cody. She could ask for a portion of my house if she left Cody. All the money I had contributed to the family account or family property would stay there. That's why the sister wives started talking about our legacy for the kids. As soon as we moved to Flagstaff, I started selling a women's clothing line. Mary did too. I started making enough money that I could survive just on that. But I still owed thousands on Truly's hospital bills. I worked my butt off to pay it off with the clothing business. Then Isabel's back surgery needed to be paid. It was a $50,000 deductible, but I got some family money for that one. Once I paid off my big debts, I realized, okay, now I can think logistically about leaving. I went on vacations with my kids, usually family reunions. I went to some Brown family reunions. I made sure my family was in a place to feel comfortable. With each step, I found peace and security. I had always looked for security in my family, but it eluded me. But when it was just me and my space, it was wonderful. I continued to work on me, to become more confident and secure. I felt calm and ready, even while I didn't know my future or what obstacles might arise. I didn't know if the show would continue. I didn't know if my kids would be okay with the change, but I laid out a goal to achieve every month. Check, check, check. My conversations with Janelle and my mom got me there. Once I had a plan I could act on, rather than this vague idea that I wanted to maybe leave someday, it became real. I made every decision with joy. I was one step closer toward my kids and the possibility of happiness, whatever that might look like. I didn't know it would be so great to live my life for myself and for my kids. It felt simple, a whole new dynamic, different from anything I'd had before. I felt myself become more powerful with every step, and I realized it had started even before the conversation with my mom. I had already come to terms with my faith and figured out that God and I were good, and I had already reclaimed my space. To prepare my house for sale, I took care of the repairs myself, met with a realtor by myself, and cleaned the house myself so a photographer could come in. I sold my bedroom set. I did not need to bring that bad juju to my new space. I posted pictures and kept it as nondescript as possible to keep my identity private. If people figured out I was selling my stuff, they might figure out I was leaving before I told the rest of the family. I didn't need for them to find out on the internet. Cody and I had picked the set together and filmed it for the show. It was old world, and I loved it. I had tapestries up and a lot of gold and matching bedding, and it was a beautiful room. When I was pregnant with McKelty, Cody got me a picture of a woman on horseback with a knight standing near. I love the pre-Raphaelite fair maiden stuff, but I didn't know what to do with that one, or the others I had. They're from the past, and they felt important, but they didn't feel like me anymore. I realized all of it symbolized a relationship where we tried for a long time. But no one should have to try so hard in a relationship. I donated all of it. Ultimately, every decision I made needed to help me toward my goal of fitting everything in the U-Haul. By the time I was done, I had a few odds and ends, as well as the snowblower, which I didn't want to get rid of until I knew I didn't need to clear out the driveway for people looking at the house. Cody had already laid some of his cards on the table. When I kicked him out of the house, he didn't say, "Can we talk to our therapist?" or "I'm brokenhearted," or "What about the kids?" He said, "This is my house." That's what he cared about. The family had helped with the down payment, but I made every mortgage payment. I paid for all the repairs. He had some decor, and we had bought some furniture together, so there were items he visited from time to time, but it was not his house. I was blown away that he didn't talk about the kids. Cody said on the show that he was most worried about whether I would find a new boyfriend who would take away his money. He wasn't hurt that I was leaving or concerned about Truly. He was worried that my imaginary boyfriend would break into his pots of gold. There was no other guy, and there wouldn't be for 2 years. But there was Truly, our funny, gorgeous, old soul girl. She should have been first. I felt shocked, but I also think he has always been greedy. His business deals always felt a bit questionable to me. I've watched him through the years at the family meetings, and he always decided where the money went. By the time we split up the family account, there was no money left, and we had been doing the show for 14 years. Dude, your kids don't have shoes and coats, but you have a new convertible. That car made me mad. We were all driving crap cars and minivans, and we just played along like, I guess we're new people now that we have this show. He said he needed it for some alone time. Obviously, it was because he wanted to date, not to dad, and not to husband. I learned recently, because Janelle talked about it on the show, that the family money hadn't been distributed evenly. My name was on the family account, so I could have looked at it, but it never occurred to me. But while I thought I was contributing to the family account by taking only what I needed, it turns out that money was simply being spent elsewhere. I worked to be positive, but I also needed to work on my anger at myself. I felt embarrassed, especially when I realized my kids knew I was in a loveless marriage. My fans knew I was in a loveless marriage. My dad knew. It's humiliating. How could I allow it when I'm one of the most romantic people I know? Fair maidens, yellow towels, Scottish lords? What had I been thinking? There had been some expert-level gaslighting. People gaslight because it works. People who don't gaslight don't expect it. They wouldn't think to do it. They take people at their word. Cody had a lot of words. We weren't loving enough, or attractive enough, or being nice enough sister wives. We weren't loyal enough or following his orders. He wanted our independence until he started to push us out, one by one. Then he used Janelle's independence against her to call her disloyal. He used Mary's undying loyalty against her when he convinced her to move to Flagstaff, so he could use the money from the sale of her house in Vegas to pay for Robin's in Flagstaff, by telling her he wanted a reconciliation. Before telling the camera, he already considered himself divorced from her. He pushed me out initially by saying he didn't find me attractive because I wasn't kind to my sister wives, but ultimately by taking his love away from my children. I realized my kids knew our marriage was broken, and I knew I was setting an example that it was okay to be in a loveless marriage and that it was okay to settle, that it was okay to be walked on and not have love and put yourself last. No, I would not set that example for my kids. I was frustrated with myself that I had let it go on for so long, but also that I just hadn't seen it. I hadn't been ready to see it. I tried to give myself some grace for that. You never leave until you're ready. As I made my decision to leave, I realized some days needed to remain positive. Robin's wedding day will always be a good memory. Valentine's Day, for the most part, was lovely. Robin took over Passover, and those were good days. Mary's pajamas, Christmas at the cabin, Cody as a dad when the kids were little, the trip to Nauvoo, cooking with my sister wives at Thanksgiving, the parties, the kids growing up together. I didn't want to live my life moving forward feeling bitter or negative about the life I had led to that point. I wanted to be happy